There's a neighborhood just outside of Louisville, Kentucky. Nothing fancy. Ranch-style homes, lawns people actually mow themselves. The kind of street where everybody waves but nobody's counting each other's money. Every summer, someone on the block throws a barbecue. This year, it was June. Folding chairs on the driveway, paper plates, burgers on a charcoal grill, kids running through a sprinkler. Gordon was standing near the fence, quiet as usual, nursing a lemonade. 63 years old, retired the year before, mechanical engineer, 32 years at the same company. Same house for 21 of them. Same truck in the driveway for the last 8. If you looked at Gordon, you wouldn't think twice. You'd see a guy who did fine, comfortable, nothing special. Now across the yard, that's Dr. Neal, the dentist, big personality, loud laugh. He pulled up in a new BMW last month, just finished a $45,000 pool and patio in the backyard. Everybody on the street knows Neal is doing well. You can see it. At some point during the afternoon, Neal leans over the cooler, beer in hand, and says it loud enough for the whole yard to hear. Must be nice living on an engineer's pension, huh, Gordon? A few laughs, some polite smiles. Gordon just nods, doesn't say a word. But here's what nobody at that barbecue knows. Not Neal, not the neighbors, not the guy flipping burgers. Gordon's net worth is more than double Neal's. Not by a little, by a lot. And it's not even close. How does a man who earns $75,000 less every single year end up with more than twice the wealth? That's exactly what this video is about, and by the end, you're going to see your own retirement completely differently. If you're within 10 years of retirement, if you've done things right, but still feel like the math doesn't quite add up, stay here. This one was made for you. Now, before you think this is just about engineers being good at math, it's not. Plenty of smart people retire broke. Plenty of average earners retire rich. This isn't about IQ. This isn't about what you studied in college. It's about a specific set of financial behaviors that engineers tend to adopt almost by accident because of how they're trained to think. And here's the thing that makes this uncomfortable. These behaviors aren't complicated. They're not secret. Anyone could do them, but almost nobody does, because the financial world is designed to make you do the opposite. Over the next 20 minutes, I'm going to break down the 5 behavioral patterns that make retired engineers quietly, almost invisibly wealthy, and the uncomfortable truth about why higher earning professions, doctors, lawyers, dentists, often end up with less money when it actually matters. In retirement, when the paychecks stop. This matters right now because every year you wait to understand this, lifestyle inflation is silently eating your future. Not dramatically, not in a way you notice. It's more like a slow leak. 20 years are going to pass either way. The question is what you do with the next 5. Let's go back to Gordon and Neal for a second. Same neighborhood. Kids went to the same schools. Their wives were in the same book club for 12 years. They've lived parallel lives for 2 decades. But their financial paths couldn't be more different. Neal earned roughly $210,000 a year at his peak. Gordon, $135,000. That's a $75,000 annual gap. Over 30 years, that's more than $2 million in extra gross income that Neal brought home. $2 million more. Let that sit for a moment. So how on earth does Gordon end up ahead? Because Gordon treated his retirement like an engineering project. He didn't just save money and hope for the best. He designed a system. He identified the variables. He stress tested the assumptions. He optimized for efficiency, not for status, not for appearances, for output. Neal did what most high-income earners do. He earned more, so he spent more. And he assumed the income would always be there to solve whatever problem showed up next. That's not a character flaw. It's not stupidity. It's a pattern, and it has a name: lifestyle inflation. The Federal Reserve's survey of consumer finances shows something most people never see. Households earning over $200,000 a year carry an average of $11,000 in credit card debt. That's the high earners. Households earning between $100,000 and $150,000, about $4,800. The ones earning more aren't just spending more. They're spending disproportionately more. In many cases, the gap between income and spending actually shrinks as income goes up. Here's the deeper layer. It's not that Neal is irresponsible. He's not reckless. He's following the playbook he was given, the one everybody follows. Higher income means better lifestyle, bigger house, newer car, nicer vacations. Society rewards visible spending. Your neighbors notice the pool, Nobody throws a party because you maxed out your 401k. Neil's wealth is on display. Gordon's wealth is in his brokerage account. One of them gets compliments at dinner parties. The other one sleeps like a baby. And that difference between wealth you can see and wealth you can use is the entire story. And this is where it gets interesting. Most people think retirement wealth comes from income. Makes sense, right? Earn more, have more. But it doesn't work that way. Retirement wealth comes from the gap between what you earn and what you spend. That gap is your savings rate. And this is where engineers quietly, almost embarrassingly, dominate. Vanguard's How America Saves report shows the average American saves about 7% of their income for retirement. That's the national number. 7 cents of every dollar. The rest goes to mortgages, cars, groceries, subscriptions, and all the little things that feel necessary until you add them up. But when you break that number by profession, something strange appears. Engineers, mechanical, civil, electrical, software consistently save between 15 and 22%. Not because they earn the most, they don't. Doctors earn more. Lawyers earn more. Dentists like Neil earn more. Senior sales executives earn more. But engineers save a larger percentage of what they make. And over a 30-year career, percentage beats dollars every single time. And here's the part that changes everything. Over 30 years, a 15% savings rate on $135,000 beats a 7% savings rate on $210,000. It's not even close. It's not a marginal difference. It's a landslide. Let me show you the math. Gordon saving 15% of $135,000 puts away $20,250 a year. Neil saving 7% of $210,000 puts away $14,700. Gordon is putting away $5,500 more per year while earning $75,000 less. Now, compound that $5,500 annual difference invested at 7% over 30 years grows to over $550,000. $500,000 just from the savings rate gap. Not from a hot stock tip, not from crypto, not from inheritance, from behavior, from the simple decision to keep more of what you earn. If this is already shifting how you think about your own numbers, drop a comment. I want to know where you are in this picture. Now here's the second mechanism, and this one is almost invisible. You won't see it on a bank statement. You won't feel it month to month. But over a career, it can eat $250,000. Neil, like most high earners, hired a financial advisor. Nothing wrong with that. His advisor is a nice guy, sends a Christmas card, calls every quarter. Charges 1% of assets under management. Standard fee. Industry average. Nobody questions it because everybody pays it. Gordon, he manages his own portfolio. 3 index funds, 1 total stock market, 1 international, 1 bond, total expense ratio, 0.04%. He set it up in 2002, automated the contributions, and basically forgot about it. He checks it maybe twice a year. 1% doesn't sound like much. It sounds like almost nothing. But let me put it in human terms. On a portfolio of $800,000, 1% is $8,000 a year, every year, whether the market goes up or down, whether your advisor beats the market or not. And here's the part that stings. Over 25 years, that fee compounded against your returns can consume over $250,000 of your wealth. Not in fees you write a check for. In returns you never earn. Invisible money, gone money. Neil paid his advisor roughly $260,000 over his career. Gordon paid his fund companies about $8,000 total. That's a $250,000 difference for what is in most cases statistically identical market performance. Study after study shows that the average actively managed fund underperforms its benchmark index after fees. The data isn't even controversial. It's just ignored. This isn't an argument against all financial advisors. Some people genuinely need guidance. Some advisors add real value in tax planning and estate work. But engineers tend to skip the traditional model, not because they're cheap, but because they run the numbers and realize the math doesn't justify the cost. They treat fees like friction in a machine. Unnecessary resistance, wasted energy, and engineers hate friction. Here's the third pattern, and it's the one nobody talks about. Because it doesn't feel like a financial decision. It feels like a lifestyle decision, but it's both. Engineers don't just save more and pay less in fees. They make decisions differently. When Neil bought his house, he looked at the neighborhood, the kitchen, the school district, the size of the yard. He imagined hosting Thanksgiving. He pictured the pool he'd add someday. He bought with his gut. When Gordon bought his house, he ran a spreadsheet. Total cost of ownership over 25 years, mortgage interest, property taxes, maintenance at 1% of home value per year, insurance, and the one most people never calculate, opportunity cost of the down payment if invested. Instead, Neil bought a $480,000 home. Gordon bought a $310,000 home in the same school district 4 miles away. Not because Gordon couldn't afford more, he qualified for more. The bank would have happily given him more. But his model told him the extra $170,000 locked in home equity would return less than the same amount sitting in an index fund over 25 years. And he was right. That difference invested instead grew to over $680,000. The house Neil is so proud of actually cost him almost $700,000 in lost wealth. Not because the house was bad, because the alternative was better. And Gordon did the math. This is decision architecture. When you have decision architecture, you don't rely on willpower. You don't rely on discipline in the moment. Decision architecture removes emotion from the equation. You build the system once, and it makes the right call for you automatically, silently, every time. The Bureau of Labor Statistics Consumer Expenditure Survey confirms this pattern at scale. Households headed by engineers spend 18% less on housing relative to income than the national average. Not because they live in bad neighborhoods, not because they're suffering, because they optimize the ratio. They buy what makes mathematical sense, not what makes emotional sense. Same pattern with cars. Gordon's driven 3 cars in 30 years. Neil's had 9. The average American spends over $5,800 a year on total vehicle expenses. Payments, insurance, fuel, maintenance, depreciation. Gordon's lifetime average? About $3,200. That's $2,600 a year in savings every single year for 30 years. That went straight into his portfolio. Compounded, that's another $300,000 from cars. Just cars. Now, here's the uncomfortable question, and I want you to sit with this one for a second. If you're being honest with yourself, truly honest, whose financial behavior looks more like yours, Gordon's or Neil's? Let's make this personal, because knowing Gordon's story is interesting. It's a good story, but applying it to your life is what actually changes your future. I'm going to show you 2 scenarios, and I want you to figure out which one looks like yours. If you're earning over $150,000, saving less than 10%, and your financial advisor sends you a quarterly report you don't really read, you might be on the Neil path. And I don't say that to insult you. I say it because the Neil path feels safe. It feels normal. Everyone around you is on it. That's what makes it dangerous. Here's what the Neil path looks like at 60. Let's say you're 55 right now. You've got $300,000 saved. You're contributing 6% to your 401k, and your employer matches 3%. That's about $13,500 a year going in. At 7% average growth, you'll hit roughly $540,000 by 65. $540,000 sounds okay, right? Sounds like a lot of money. Now run the withdrawal math. The 4% rule, which is the standard guideline for sustainable retirement spending, gives you $21,600 a year from that portfolio. Add Social Security, let's say $22,000, which is close to the national average. That's $43,600 a year. Total, if you're used to spending $120,000, you're facing a 64% pay cut in retirement. When you're supposed to be relaxing, when you're supposed to be enjoying the years you worked so hard for. Instead, you're doing math at the grocery store. The trap here isn't that you didn't earn enough. You earned plenty, more than most people in this country. The trap is that you're spending calibrated to your income automatically, invisibly, and nobody told you the formula was broken. Nobody said, hey, the more you earn, the wider the gap becomes between your lifestyle and what your savings can actually sustain. Now, let's look at the Gordon path. You earn $100,000 less than the person above, significantly less, but you save 18%. You've been disciplined about it for 20 years. You've got $400,000 saved at 55. You're putting in $18,000 a year plus a 5% employer match, $23,000 total going in. At 7% growth, you'll hit about $760,000 by 65. 4% withdrawal, $30,400. Social Security at $20,000, that's $50,400 a year. If you're used to spending $65,000, you're looking at a 22% adjustment. That's manageable. That's a conversation about eating out 3 times a week instead of 4. Not a conversation about whether you can afford your medication. And here's what makes it even easier. Gordon Path people have already proven for decades that they can live well on less. The adjustment isn't a shock. It's barely noticeable because they never inflated their lifestyle in the first place. The person earning $50,000 more per year ends up with $220,000 less in retirement savings. Higher income, lower wealth. That's the paradox. And it happens every single day in America. Not to careless people, to normal people following the normal playbook. If you're seeing yourself in one of these scenarios, subscribe, because the next part is about what to actually do about it. Here's what separates people who hear this and nod from people who hear this and change. It's not about becoming an engineer. You don't need a degree in mechanical engineering to retire like Gordon. It's about adopting 3 specific habits that engineers use without even thinking about it. Habits so simple you'll wonder why nobody taught you. The Schwab Modern Wealth Survey found that people who have a written financial plan accumulate an average of $250,000 more over their lifetime than people who don't. Not a complicated plan. Not a 50-page document, just a written one. Something you can look at, something that holds you accountable. Engineers document everything. That's not personality, that's training. And it transfers. Think of your retirement like an engineering project. You wouldn't build a bridge without stress testing the load capacity. You wouldn't design an engine without running failure scenarios. So why would you enter retirement without stress testing your withdrawal rate against inflation, healthcare costs, and a 30-year timeline? So here's what you do. Not tomorrow, not next quarter, not after you do more research, today. Step 1, calculate your actual savings rate. Not what you think it is, what it actually is. Take your total annual savings, 401k contributions, IRA, brokerage deposits, everything, and divide by your gross income. Write that number down. If it's below 15%, you're on the Neil path. And the fix is simple. Adjust your automatic contributions up by 2% this month. Not a dramatic overhaul, just 2%. You won't feel it in your paycheck, but over 10 years, that 2% changes everything. Step 2, run a total fee audit. Log into every investment account you have, find the expense ratio on every single fund, write them down. If you're paying more than 0.2% on any index fund, switch to a lower cost alternative. If you have a financial advisor, ask them in writing what your total annual cost is, including fund fees, transaction costs, and advisory fees combined. Most people have never done this. Most people don't want to know. The number will surprise you, and that surprise is worth $250,000 over your career. Step 3, build your own one-page retirement model. You don't need fancy software. You don't need a subscription. A free spreadsheet with 5 columns: current savings, annual contribution, expected return, years to retirement, and projected balance. Run 3 scenarios: conservative at 5%, moderate at 7%, optimistic at 9%. If the conservative number scares you, you have your answer, and you have it before it's too late to change it. Step 4, apply the housing ratio test. Take your total annual housing cost, mortgage, taxes, insurance, maintenance, and divide by your gross income. If it's above 28%, you're overpaying for shelter at the expense of your future self. Gordon kept his at 19%. That single decision, that one ratio, funded over $600,000 of his retirement. Your house might be the most expensive thing you never questioned. Step 5, automate and forget. Set up automatic transfers on the 1st of every month. Not what's left over after bills and dinners and impulse buys. What goes first before anything else. Engineers call this a default state. The system runs unless you actively stop it. That's the whole point. Remove the decision from the equation and the outcome takes care of itself. You don't need willpower, you need a wire transfer. You don't need to do anything complicated. You don't need a finance degree. You need a system that runs without your emotions getting in the way. So why doesn't anyone talk about this? Because there's no money in telling you to save more and spend less. Think about who profits from your financial decisions. The financial industry earns fees on complexity. The more confused you are, the more you pay someone to explain it. The real estate industry earns commissions on bigger houses. They don't get paid more when you buy the smart house. They get paid more when you buy the big house. The auto industry earns margins on new cars every 3 years. The entire economic machine around you is calibrated to capture your income, and the higher your income, the louder the machine gets. The highest earners are often the worst retirees, not because they're foolish, but because every industry around them is designed to extract their money before they can save it. Nobody captures Gordon's income because Gordon built a system that says no by default, a system that doesn't require him to resist temptation because the temptation never reaches his bank account. This video started with a question. Why are retired engineers secretly among the richest retirees in America? The answer isn't engineering. It's not math. It's not that they're smarter than you. It's that they treat money like a system, not a feeling. They optimize for output, not appearance. They automate what works and eliminate what doesn't. They don't make financial decisions in the moment. They make them once, in advance, with a spreadsheet open and the emotions turned off. Gordon didn't retire rich because he was an engineer. He retired rich because he applied engineering principles to his money. Design the system, test the variables, remove the friction, let it run. You can do the same thing, starting today. You don't need to change your career. You don't need to earn more. You need to look at your financial life and ask one question. Am I building a system, or am I just reacting to whatever shows up? The industry doesn't want you asking that question, because when you build your own system, you stop paying for theirs. You now have the blueprint. The engineering project is yours. Remember that barbecue? 6 months later, Neil knocked on Gordon's door, not to borrow a wrench, not to talk about the game, to ask for help with a spreadsheet. He'd run his own numbers for the first time, and the numbers scared him. Gordon didn't say, "I told you so." He didn't lecture. He opened his laptop and said 5 words, "Let me show you my setup." That's the whole lesson. The wealthiest retirees in America aren't the ones who earn the most. They're the ones who engineered their finances like they engineered everything else, quietly, systematically, without anyone noticing until it was too late to catch up. 3 things to remember. Savings rate beats income. Fees are silent wealth killers, and a written system beats good intentions every single time. If this changed how you think about your own retirement math, leave a comment. I want to hear your number. Hit subscribe if you want more of this. The question now isn't whether Gordon's approach works. The data says it does. The question is, what does your spreadsheet say? See you in the next one.